Hello guys, once again, thank you. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about uh, the dynamism of the economy. And the dynamism, I'm not talking about a particular economy. I'm talking about how generally economies change over time. So this is a very interesting view, but I think most of you have heard of it. And I think when you understand it, when you think about it, really, it makes a lot of sense how where an economy is, where it is looking forward to, because there is a repeatable pattern that seems to recur in economies, both developing and developed. So now developed have gone through this phase, and now developing from developing economies, you can see this shift, and you can join the dots, right? So there's an interesting thing that I always think about, or I realized about developing economies. So agriculture is a very interesting feature of developing economies. So developing economies usually have this thing about agriculture as the central figure of the economy. That means basically agriculture accounts for a good portion of the economy, whether it's in incomes, producing incomes. So incomes, employment. So incomes, farmers, and or the whole ecosystem that depends on generating money from farming. So whether it's farmers, whether it's laborers, so there's labor, there's industries. The finance industry is very dynamic. It can rely on any other industry because it's just about capital allocation and funding ventures that are profitable. So yeah, in this sense, finance in a very strongly biased, or an economy that relies a lot on agriculture, finance will be very quickly able to get into that. Finance actually is we can say it's the most flexible industry, in that it just funds any profitable venture. So yeah, entire circles. You can talk about, look at our economy. The Kenyan economy is very tied to the agricultural industry. So circles, there's many circles that rely on that. There's other aspects also, but they're very interconnected. Something like transport. I like the transport industry. The transport industry is a very good industry. Very not much exploited, but very good industry. Or the exploitation is on the things that have already been done. When everyone is going back to what people have already done, but that's okay. But what I want to say is the connection, um, the connection between the economy. So let's say transport and let's say agriculture. Agriculture is a very strong backbone of, let's say, something like our economy. But I think it transcends an economy like ours. It's a general feature of growing economy. So let's say I was talking about the dynamism, or the changing waves of an economy. So economy starts very agricultural. So it's first of all, it starts with subsistence farming, but people realize that they can produce very much more. That's now tools, the introduction of tools or mechanization. People realize they can produce more than they can consume, so they start commerce, or commercializing it, selling it to other people, and then it doesn't stop there. Then they realize that they can, so we start with subsistence farming, that is farming for your own consumption. We go to excess, selling the excess to other communities or other peoples who might need it and don't have the time or the space or the means to farm. You sell to them. But it transcends that, because there is a very high demand and there's a very large proportion. There's an asymmetry that forms. There's a very large population that doesn't have the means, or not interested in the means of producing this agricultural produce or food for themselves. And there's a very small population that are able to do this and are willing to do this as their livelihoods and produce for these people. So because of this asymmetry, there exists, and it's a very large asymmetry actually. There exists a very large gap, and then you have now commercial. Um, how do I put it? I want to. There's no term in my head for them, but I just want to give them a term for this, for the purpose of this video. These are people who are not really interested in subsistence farming. They're probably just this other population who don't have the means. Don't no, not that they don't have. They have the means, but they're not interested in doing the farming themselves. But they're interested in the economic. Uh, they're interested in the economic realities of this kind of world, the agricultural world. Let's say they sit in between, right? They have the means, but they're not interested in doing it. And they see an opportunity where agriculture, you see, supply and demand creates an economy, whether it's at the micro level or at the macro level. So these people who don't have, not interested entirely in the agricultural space. The people who are interested in the agricultural space, but they're interested in the commercial side of it. Now, these are the people I'm talking about now. And then there's the people who are fully interested in this. Now, these are the farmers, fully interested in this life. They are willing to do their whole livelihoods on this, and they're willing to like do the whole work from produce. I mean, from farming, produce, everything. They're willing to do it. Now, these people are the most interesting groups of people that I'm talking about. These are the people who are willing to finance these projects. They're willing to bring the machinery. They're willing to do everything to commercialize this enterprise. Now, these are very interesting people, but generally, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. So we have this is the agricultural, but I've talked about very small. I've talked about it very generally, a very small group of people, but you can see it that way. That's good enough for me to explain what I'm trying to explain. Now, because there's a large number of people who depend on agriculture for their livelihoods, some people entirely, this is their whole life. Agriculture forms a very strong backbone of the developing economy, and the future of the developing economy is very self-employed, very informal sectors, very segregated developments. That's the nature. So agriculture is a very strong backbone because the supply and demand realities of this world, especially demand. Demand. I think demand drives an economy more than supply. Supply only feeds on demand, right? So demand only reacts basically to supply. It's a yeah. You understand what I'm saying? So then we move to now mechanization. You see, there's growing. Can I say a growing different? Not differentiation. That's not the word. There's a growing detachment. That's the word. There's a growing detachment from the actual work to there's levels of detachment that are happening in a growing economy. So then there's mechanization. Mechanization is using of machines to do labor and to do a lot of work. So mechanization speeds up the process, reduces costs, maximizes profitability, and all that, right? Now that's how. Now we move from the very basic agricultural life to mechanization, which is still agriculture but a very developed form. You're having a lot of production happening because there's mechanization, there's leverage happening. You can produce more with less effort and with less. Costs are lower, significantly lower. And then there's the concept of the economies of scale. You can, because you have mechanization, you can produce very many goods. You can sell at a very good prices, very competitive prices, and this that. Then you move to industrialization. That's then now. If you're understanding what is happening in the economy is there's a growing level of detachment from the real work. The real work is the farmers on the ground, and funnily enough, I don't know if it's funny enough. It just happens to be that the people who are doing the real work maybe it's not the real work, but yeah, the actual work that is happening to make this whole industry possible are receiving the lower end of the paycheck, but that's probably what it is. Then it goes, yeah, so farming, subsistence farming, there's commercialization happening there. Then you go to now when so you see this people who I was talking about, who are in the center stage of, or are the intermediaries between the users and the farmers. These people who are very concerned with financing these ventures, all that. Then when they get the interest of doing this thing, but of course they have a larger mindset, they have very large mindset than the subsistence farmers, they get to mechanization. This is where now mechanization happens, when these financiers of these projects, agricultural projects, are become interested in now doing the work. They don't want to do the manual labor, they scale it up. Mechanization. Industrialization is now a detachment from agriculture. Uh, uh, Now people are starting to live sedentary lives, or mechanization basically, not mechanization. Um, um, yeah, I can say mechanization partly, but industrialization brings this sedentary life into play. Sedentary life, people living, not doing manual labor, they are mostly doing soft, basically the introduction of white collar job into the market. I don't know which is high in the rank. Is it white collar or blue collar? Maybe one of them. I think it's white collar. I don't know. When people are just in offices doing manual work, their main work is providing value to others, services, not goods. Yeah, sedentary life. You understand what people are more in the house. People are consuming a lot, so consumerism is getting into the market. So mechanization, not mechanization, industrialization brings that. After industrialization, we move to I don't know if there's something I'm skipping there, but I'm trying to just show the general trend. After industrialization, we have the what is it? We have technology. Um, yeah, yeah, technology. But industrialization is a very big thing because it happens in many ways. It's very universal and ubiquitous. As you can see, look at the economies and how economies grew after industrialization. It was a catalytic transformation of economies, because first of all it brings a lot of first of all it brings economies of scale, a lot of leverage, a lot. It brought a lot of leverage because one person, so the businessman owning interests can own many, just even interest in one business, and that business is enough to make them wealthy because of industrialization. An industry that is efficient can produce so many units and can supply to so many consumers around the world. Now that's now where trade comes in. But industrialization brings about like a lot of leverage. So you can see the detachment, the consistent detachment from the grassroots of the economy to now. But all of it is dependent on supply and demand. So the basics, or the foundational concepts of economics are not disrupted in any of these chains. But that's what happens. So after industrialization, there is now trade gets in. Trade changes the whole game plan. So first of all, you start with regional trade, trading across jurisdictions. Then because of industrialization, as I said, it brings a lot of leverage. You can satisfy the demand of the regional space, and depending on how you grow, once you satisfy that demand, uh, you go global. So it depends, because, and remember, this competition, so you are under pressure to do that. Then we come to technology. Technology now changes the whole game plan again, because it brings about the concept of information asymmetry. First of all, there's generally information asymmetry. In fact, before technology and and I'm talking about computer technology, there's um, there's generally information asymmetry. You see, developing economies uh, on the receiving end, or on the, so yeah, they're on the receiving end of the information. The developed countries are on the um, can I say the giving end? I'm trying to find the duality of it. So basically, they're on the other side. The first receive the information, receiving the information, or even if we receive the information, we don't have the capacity to act on the information fast enough. So before computer technology and the internet, um, you don't have, you have the asymmetry, but its effects are not as powerful or as large as what happens after the introduction of the internet and the computer technology era. So the computer technology era magnifies the powers of information asymmetry. This is where people who have information that can be exploited um, have an advantage over people who don't know, either don't know this information or know this information but cannot act on it fast enough. So yeah, but it's a very interesting thing that happens in an economy as it grows about. Um, and there's another thing that happens also I've not talked about. There's financialization. Financialization is, I read it the other day on the internet. It describes it as the the embedding of financial products in everyday life. Let me say that. I think that's the way it was described. I'm paraphrasing. Can't remember exactly how it said, but that's the way it was described. But generally, the way I understand it, financialization is basically, let's say, the growing power of finance. Let's just say that the growing power of finance and financial community, or the financial industry in an economy. So if you want to see, if you want to, the telltale signs, let me say, the telltale signs of financialization in economy are the powerful financial firms, powerful financial corporations. Like basically, when finance corporations are the most powerful, or one of the most powerful entities in an economy, we're talking about financialization. The case is true for America right now. uh, and also we can say the growing if you see the growing influence of finance in everyday life, yes. uh, in politics, like if it's a very core thing in an economy, or if it's a very core reality of everyday life, yeah. So whether it's um, o- another telltale sign you could say is if we can say we can say if living without financial products is hard. Like, there's this thing about living in towns or metropolises. So the yeah, remember, the economy grows with the cities and with the towns, with the geographical location. So a growing economy, of course, develops towns and everything. Towns, like, they are in constant evolution, co-evolving. If living in a country or in a jurisdiction or in a city or in a town is very hard without financial products, then financialization is either looming in, or has already loomed in into that economy. So this is financial apps, financial consultancy, financial, I don't know if it's in everyday life, everything. We're talking about investing, we're talking about loans, we're talking about credit cards, especially credit cards. That's a very interesting feature of financialization. If credit card use is very rampant, I've talked about it and it just hit me. This is one of the key uh, telltale signs of financialization. When credit card use is very prominent, that's a very strong indicator of financialization. Because remember, credit cards are just basically They're like debit cards, but now it's not your money, it's the bank's money. If you don't pay back in the period that you're given, or the interest rate period, you are charged late fees, and they have very high interest. Like those credit cards, crazy interest. So yeah, it's a very strong indication of financialization. Credit cards, if they're very rampant in use, financialization is happening. Anyway, I think I've discussed everything I could about the dynamic economy, or the changes in the economy, or how the economy changes. And with that, I want to conclude there. Thank you for listening. See you next time. Bye bye.